Welcome to a new edition of the Five Heart Podcast. This is the substitute host of the show, Todd Wolverton. Joining me tonight is John Dam Johnston. You never know what John's thinking, I can tell you. He's saying, what is that dumb shit doing hosting a podcast? That's what he's thinking.
No, I'm thinking that welcome was like the welcome said like by the most insecure man welcoming you, standing at the beginning of Walmart when you walk in. Welcome.
That's my life in 5 years, John. That's who I'm going to be in 5 years. I'm auditioning for that job right now.
You know what? It's okay. Somebody has to do that.
Well, folks, Greg is not with us tonight. We're hopeful that he can join in, but those of you that have small children and more than one, you know what life is like with toddlers and infants at bedtime. So we're hopeful that Greg can jump in here before it's all said and done. But as we record this, Greg is doing his number one job, which is being a dad. John, as we record this, definitely some Cornhusker football news today. And I'll just toss it out there and I'll let you take it. Adrian Martinez has announced that he is entering the portal, which would indicate to all of us that his career as a Nebraska Cornhusker is over. And more importantly, Adrian does intend to play one more year, at least one more year. Good for him. But John, give me your thoughts about Adrian in the portal and just, well, generally let's chat a little bit about Adrian Martinez.
I think you already said it. Good for him. You know, I think what I thought of was this. I wrote the article and it was really quick about him being in the transfer portal, and he is an enigma. I mean, the guy, I wrote that he's probably one of the most loved Cornhusker players that I can think of in recent history. And I think that there's almost nobody that would say bad things about him as a person because he was always a stand-up guy. He always took responsibility. He never blamed other people. He always, he didn't hide. He didn't go act like a child at any point ever that we saw. So I think it's best for him, and I think it's best for Nebraska and Scott Frost. And I've been a consultant my entire life. And when I was a young consultant, I'd worried about having customers and maintaining customers and relationship with customers. And when I got fired or the time for the relationship was coming to an end, I was always kind of depressed by it. And I thought, people shouldn't get fired. Or they shouldn't get, you shouldn't lose your relationship or lose customers. You're just being bad. And what I learned over time is there is a natural evolution of a relationship with a customer. They bring you in, they need you for something, and then you're needed, and then you're not needed anymore. And I'm not saying Adrian Martinez isn't needed. What I'm saying is, people tend to look at these things when a player leaves and they go, well, we've been rejected, and then they feel bad. And really what this is I think it's the natural conclusion for this relationship that Nebraska has with Adrian Martinez. There were many times in my life where I actually recommended people to replace me at customer sites because I told my customers, your business has grown now enough that you don't need me. You need somebody full time. You need somebody to take my place. And that is because I matured enough to understand what the relationship was supposed to be. And I think right now, what I'd like to see Adrian Martinez do is go to another team where he wins all of his games and he sets all of the records and he becomes a Heisman Trophy candidate and he wins the Heisman Trophy. I mean, I would love to see Adrian Martinez go somewhere else and just beat the shit out of everybody. Not because there's some kind of big fingers up to Scott Frost or us at Nebraska, but because, I think he deserves it. Because he has weathered a lot I can't imagine being him with all of the abuse that he's taken. I mean, I get a lot of shit from people on comments on social media and stuff, but I tend to bring that out in people. I don't shy away from it. Adrian Martinez has been abused and just beaten up by people that want to blame him for all of our problems. And he has never once that I can remember ever acted like he was bothered by it, or you know what I mean? He never lashed out. He never responded with anything but a very perfect for a fucking 21-year-old kid. That's an amazing amount of maturity.
Yeah. John, I concur 100%. And, people that watch the podcast, listen to the podcast, or read comments that we make, on Corn Nation, they know that I'm an Adrian Martinez fan. And I too agree that, this is the best thing for Adrian. And I think it's the best thing for the University of Nebraska. But, he is a polarizing figure. And while I find that hard to believe, I was listening to Nick Handley this afternoon, and he was talking about it a little bit and opened it up to the callers. And the first caller that came on just crucified her. I'm glad he's gone. He, stunk and, lost all, just highly critical of him. And, I just almost wanted to reach into the dashboard, into the radio, and just grab that guy by the throat. He was not the best Nebraska quarterback, far from it. But, I don't think we've had a player in the last we have not had a player in the Scott Frost era that has given more of himself on the field and off the field than Adrian Martinez has. This kid, you mentioned, he got abused. He got physically abused on the football field, and he got abused by the fan base off the field and other critics. And absolutely, he handled it very professionally. He handled it very well. And I have a tremendous amount of respect for that. I think we all kind of personalize our fandom a little bit. And Adrian Martinez is my favorite Cornhusker in the last 10 to 15 years. Well, maybe Rex Burkhead up there too. But, I just think the world of him. And, my favorite Cornhusker quarterback of all time is Turner Gill, arguably one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. My opinion, the best Nebraska quarterback is Tommy Frazier, but I don't like that son of a bitch. Adrian Martinez is an incredibly likable guy. And there is not a kid that has put on the scarlet and cream in the last 4 years that has given any more of himself on that football field than Adrian Martinez. I hope, John, he lands in a good spot for him. I do too. I hope he wins every game that he plays. I hope he makes it through a season where his body doesn't feel like he was run over by a locomotive. Because I think Adrian Martinez is the guy that 5, 10, 15 years from now, if they were to invite him back because his records were broken and maybe just to kind of honor the new guy, Adrian Martinez would walk out into the middle of that field with his Nebraska letter jacket on, because he's always going to be proud that he was a Cornhusker, and kind of F you to all the critics. So, Greg, you've joined us. You want to chime in on Adrian and him entering the portal? John and I are kind of giving our salute to him.
For a couple things, I can't reveal my source. I was sworn to secrecy. I couldn't even tell the good people at Corn Nation, but I knew this was coming about 15 minutes before official word dropped. And I wanted to tell the Slack chat room, like, be on the lookout, be prepared. But again, I was told, don't tell anybody. That being said, I think this is best for all parties. And again, not, coming in mid conversation, I don't know what all was said. Todd, you gave a very nice, for lack of a better term, it's the first one that I guess farewell. The first word that came to my mind was eulogy.
Yeah, the Adrian Martinez, Sarah.
But and look, loved the kid, and everything that he brought. Didn't always care for the player necessarily. I hope that he has a terrific offseason wherever he goes. And that's the thing. Where is he going to go? I'm very curious the answer to that question, because who is going to want, essentially a grad transfer, although I think he's technically still a junior, so you might be able to get 2 years out of him. But what coach and what program is going to want to take a flyer on an injury-prone and poor decision-making prone quarterback who's just coming off of shoulder surgery?
Let me pose this.
All of them.
Greg, let me just real quick. Is he a Power 5? Will he end up at a Power 5 conference school, or will he end up in a group of 5, or will he end up with an FCS team?
I say group of 5. Honestly, I say Mountain West. I feel like if he ends up at a Power 5, it's going to be Pac-12 or Big 12, probably Pac-12 because that's closer to home. But he's going to have to play somewhere where they're not used to defense. They're not used to big bruiser defensive linemen and hard-hitting linebackers. He would be, and perhaps maybe, I think as for all of his accolades, all the records he broke, only 4-year, starting quarterback, only 3-time, captain, everything that he did. For whatever reason, he was not fit for the Big Ten style of play, which makes me nervous about any other true dual threat QB that they bring in, especially when they don't bring in an offensive line to protect them. There's a reason why there aren't as many, true dual threat QBs in the Big Ten. The Big Ten, traditionally, historically, whatever you want to call it, has always been, you got our 5 big meatheads, your, 4 meatheads, or, whatever on the defensive side, and whatever other, strapping young bucks next to them. And it's just, pound each other. Big Ten football has always been a game of will. You are going to assert your will on the opposing team's, offensive or defensive line. And when Nebraska couldn't do that, which Nebraska has not been able to do that for some time, you get a 3-9 record where, gosh, we've been saying it since the Northwestern game, best 3-win team in the country. And, then we lost the last however many games. And it was, we've been talking about the moral victories question since Oklahoma, Michigan State, Michigan, et cetera, Minnesota, maybe not Minnesota. Minnesota was, I don't think, ranked at that time, but, and I'm getting off the Adrian Martinez crux of the question. I apologize. We'll try to get back to it. But as a team that lost I think a record 9 games, all by single digits, and to a variety of teams, from the Illinois and the Minnesota to Oklahoma, Ohio State, Michigan. Michigan just did what I don't think anybody expected Michigan to do, and that was finally beat Ohio State, and Jim Harbaugh finally got that win. And then he'll have to go because Wisconsin served a lame duck up to Minnesota. The Iowa, the team that we had, we're up 21-9 on. Iowa now gets to go play in the Big Ten championship. Back to Adrian Martinez, and I think the original question, group of 5.
Hey, John, just one question for you about Adrian Martinez. Greg mentioned group of 5, or he thinks group of 5, maybe Mountain West, closer to home. Adrian Martinez dates a soccer player from Kansas State, Power 5 school. You got to give me a yes or no. Adrian Martinez starting quarterback at Kansas State next year.
No. Adrian Martinez starting quarterback at Kansas. Yeah, there was a big pause in that.
Greg's got group of 5. I'm gonna shock y'all.
Uh-oh.
Adrian Martinez, starting quarterback, Iowa Hawkeyes. Let's move on to the coaching.
I'm leaving.
Oh God.
Well, they could use something. They wouldn't know what to do. They would just like go, what did we do with this guy? I mean, they wouldn't know how he's taken off running. What the hell? They'd freak out.
Adrian Martinez fits into a Brian Ferentz offensive play like I fit into 36 waist pants. It ain't happening, Captain.
Okay. The other breaking Cornhusker football news today, which we read from the All-American sports writer for the Omaha World Herald, Sam McCowan, has indicated that they're finalizing the deal with Mickey Joseph to come to the University of Nebraska. I assume as a wide receivers coach. I don't know if the plan is to hook any special teams or anything like that with him. I recall Mickey Joseph back in the day. Used to see Mickey walking across campus, never could wear his ball cap straight. Kind of like Scott Frost, a little bit more off to the side. But Mickey Joseph is reputed to be one heck of a recruiter and also a coach that really develops players. So, with that all being said, it's important for Nebraska to bring Mickey Joseph to the football staff for the Cornhuskers because of his Nebraska ties. John?
No. Although it would make people
he knows
very
the
happy.
culture, John. He understands
whatever. Who gives a shit? Fuck our culture. I mean,
we don't have culture.
Our culture
anymore.
is a loser. That's what our culture is. And if you don't like that, then, tough shit. But that's who we are. We're losers. And if you want to change that culture, you hire winners. So I think if Mickey Joseph has a good coaching pedigree, that's all I care about. I don't give a shit. Do you remember when he got tackled into the bench and it cut his leg all the way to the bone in the Oklahoma game?
Bobby Newcomb.
God dang it. I keep getting those two mixed up. No, it was Mickey Joseph, wasn't it?
No. Bobby Newcomb. Bench and.
Yeah, he got tackled into the bench right before we played Georgia Tech, and they killed us because we didn't have a starting quarterback in the national title game, 1989?
1990.
1990, okay.
1990, broke his leg in the first quarter of the game in Norman. And I know everybody's wondering, Greg, you were 8. And you have said numerous times you weren't following college football until you got to Nebraska. So, Greg, how do you know this? Wikipedia.
Greg, how do you know this?
Wikipedia, my friends.
Does it say he broke his leg?
Yes. That's it. It's a season-ending injury by breaking. Yeah, well,
Wow.
I think he got tackled into the bench, and the bench cut his leg all the way to the bone. It was a guy rode him out of bounds. A fucking Oklahoma player.
Your memory. You're right.
An Oklahoma player rode him out of bounds into the bench because that's what them cheap shot motherfucking evil cocksuckers from Oklahoma do. That's the first time I've ever said cocksuckers, and I guess it belongs to Oklahoma.
Well, so
I think what I appreciate perhaps most, and I didn't mean to cut you off there, Todd, is he's coming allegedly, and maybe this will all be wrapped up by the time folks get around to listen to this podcast, watch this video on YouTube. But allegedly, Mickey Joseph's working, finalizing a deal to bring him to Lincoln. His Nebraska ties, and John answered the question succinctly, but his Nebraska ties don't mean as much to me as the fact that he spent the last few years at LSU, where I don't know if you know or not about what happened down in LSU in the last couple of years, but they won a natty. I think it might bring some recruitment credibility to the Louisiana area because he spent a lot of time in Louisiana. I don't know. That's how I perceive it. I strip away the Husker relation, past history or whatever, because it's meaningless. He hasn't been a Husker since 91. He hasn't been in the program since 91. So that's 30 years. And he's gone and done a lot of other things since then. Let's focus more on recent achievements rather than 30-year-old achievements.
I concur with both of you. And
thank you.
I think it's great if he in fact does show up here. I think it's great. What is a little bit confusing to me is, and again, a lot of this is kind of vague, but if in fact he's just the wide receivers coach, it concerns me that we hire a wide receiver coach before we hire the offensive coordinator. So is a deal done for the offensive coordinator, but it's not announced yet for maybe because the team's, I don't, whatever. But I find it a little bit strange that of those four position coaches, the first one you hire is the wide receiver coach. And quite honestly, of the four, I think it's probably the least important.
Okay, if you're Mickey Joseph, do you make a decision on coming to Nebraska without knowing who the other coaches are? Do either of you make that professional decision? The answer is no. God, the answer is no.
Sorry,
Jesus,
I had to unmute my microphone. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hear me. It would have been.
In other words, you would not come to Nebraska unless you knew who you were coaching with and who was going to be the rest of the staff. So
because
that answers the question.
That answers the question.
That is a high profile. We saw it's a high profile opportunity to fail. And if you don't know who you're going to battle with, I'm not saying this is what happened, but if they are pulling names out of a hat, calling these guys, you want the gig, cool, and then you find out who you're going to battle with when you jump in the foxhole. That ain't how we won WW2. I'm just saying.
So it is important.
I was there.
It was important to bring in the Jimmies and Joes. And hopefully Mickey Joseph is the guy that's going to bring in the Jimmy and Joes.
No, I hope Mickey Joseph is the guy that's going to make the guys, the Jimmies and Joes.
Better.
Yeah. Because we didn't seem to do that very well.
People that seem to know a hell of a lot more about what's going on in college football and specifically Nebraska than what I do have indicated they fully expected the coaching staff to be filled by the end of this week. We only have a day or two left. So is Scott Frost is he going to have the staff full? Does it matter if it goes on into next week?
I think it matters if you got to get out there recruiting. I mean, you never stop recruiting, and days lost recruiting are days lost in developing a better program. And if you're Scott Frost, maybe once in your life at Nebraska as the head coach, you could act like there's maybe a sense of urgency to becoming good. That doesn't mean he has to announce everybody, but it should mean that everybody's together. You know what I mean? They know who they're getting right now. They're just not, nobody's letting it out yet. I hope that's the plan. Otherwise, it's just, think about it. I know guys that, like, if I show up at a customer site and I see like Ted, I'm going to kill that son of a bitch. And the next thing I know, my customer A has hired me and Ted to work together on a project. I'm looking at my customer and going, well, I guess maybe we could do this project if I don't kill him first. That's where the Mickey Joseph thing looks at it and goes, okay, I'm coming. and then you show up and you hired another guy he hates. That's not how it works. So, they're probably in the bag.
And you have to have, I would imagine, going back to the bye week after the Ohio State game, that Trev probably had a short list of names prepared for, all right, if these are the guys we're getting rid of, these are, 3 names at each, role that we're going to look at to fill them. So you have to have that type of plan in place. You can't go running into the offseason, blind. We're, thanks to, the rules changed a couple of years ago. Now we have early signing day. So we're going to be right up on early signing day here in a couple of weeks. That's before Christmas. So there's a very little amount of time to get to work. And so these guys, it's similar to, when Frost left Central Florida to come to Nebraska. He knew he was leaving. He was already on the recruiting trail while coaching. Worked out great for him at that time. I don't know what happened to that Scott Frost. I'm kidding. The Big Ten is not the AAC, and vice versa, whatever. Conference USA, but it doesn't matter. All I'm saying is a plan had to be in place. Now you have to implement the plan. And then, I could very really see where, we get 4 closes, 4 announcements in the next 4 days, because you group. I don't know. The internet was already aware of Mickey Joseph ahead of time because of leaks and dirt sheets and rumor and innuendo and chat forums and all that other BS that I don't typically buy into. He was also listed as an assistant head coach at LSU. So there's a potential that they're bringing him in, for a more of a leadership role. And one of those BS dirt sheets said, be open to I'm paraphrasing, but be open to the possibility of a co-offensive coordinator situation, 2 OCs. I don't like that idea. Reason being, because then we'll have 3 offensive coordinators, because Scott will always be Scott, and he'll always have, be an offensive coordinator at his heart. So I feel like the more coaches you get into that role, the more muddied it's going to be. But the internet,
maybe they're just getting a band back together.
And
they called him up and said, "Man, we're getting the band back together. What do you want to do?" And Mickey's like, "I want to play the synthesizer like Emerson, Lake, and Palmer." Woo! What a lucky man he was. That was terrible.
Actually, that's pretty quick for you, John.
I like a little ELP.
Now I'm all exhausted.
Yeah. John, you doing okay?
I don't think that Mickey Joseph, I'm just guessing he's not an ELP guy. I don't know. Maybe more like come on. Who's the trumpet player in New Orleans?
Louis Armstrong?
Quentin Marsalis.
No, God. Trombone Shorty, you sons of bitches. He's not.
Well, you would have said a trombone. I would have had Shorty. You said trumpet.
He started at the trombone when he was 4. That's kind of why they called it. The trombone was bigger than him.
Right. You said trumpet, and that's why.
Yeah, he plays a trumpet. He plays everything. He's fantastic. It's amazing.
All right. Okay.
Okay, we'll just move on now.
Well, let's talk about some other coaching situations, since we oftentimes wander and we cover their perspectives. I'm gonna play. Greg,
did we ever actually talk about the Iowa game?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, we did.
I know you did, John.
Do you want to talk about the Iowa game?
No. No.
I feel like we at least need to mention Logan Smothers.
Oh, well, that's true.
You talk Logan Smothers, and I'll mention 2 things, and then John, you can have 3 things.
And then I'll have 4 things. We'll go bowling.
Let's talk Logan Smothers. I thought he did a good job, but you take it from there, Greg.
I thought he was serviceable given the, limited prep time, limited game situation that he had. Looked light on his feet. Didn't make a ton of horrible passes, made one bad decision late in the game that ended up being a safety. But look, you're either going to throw it and get a safety, you're going to get tackled and get a safety. That one's not on you. That one's on all the situations that led up to that moment. All the plays and the way the game played out. It looks like he grew 8 inches from the spring game. Like for whatever reason, I remember like Logan Smothers being like my son's height. And I mean, he looked closer to the size of an actual full-grown human being. My concern is that, he's the number 4 dual threat quarterback in the country when he came out of high school. Are we always, and this might be a stupid question, and I think we've had more traditional drop back passers in the past that, I think Tanner Lee was a drop back. Joe Gantz was a drop back, I think. Zach before him.
Taylor.
Thank you. I think it was more traditional. But is it always going to be our identity that we have to have? I'm curious of the day when we'll have a 6'3", 6'4" guy back there who's broad-shouldered, strong-armed, and will just chuck the ball, and not be looking like a junior high kid behind the offensive line.
I don't think that's the offense that Scott Frost is going to coach.
I
think Scott Frost is devoted to a dual threat quarterback. I think there's a lot of fine lines from time to time. My question is, how about finding a passing quarterback that can run, run when he needs to.
I'd be okay with that.
To me, you cannot have a successful offense where your leading rusher consistently is your quarterback. And whether you have a dual threat quarterback or whatever it might be, a dual threat quarterback is in fact dual threat. And we need, in my opinion, that offense needs to have somebody that can throw a lot more effectively than he can run. That's my opinion. And so you're going to have to develop the running game. But Greg, I think you're 6'2", 6'3". I think you're dreaming 6'4", but I think he's on the team. I think that's Heinrich Harper.
I was just going to mention him.
And I think that's your guy.
Okay. Well, let's see if, the new quarterback coach can develop a quarterback, because the last quarterback coach, not so much on the development.
Let's come back to this in just a second, because let's kind of finish this Iowa conversation up a little bit, because I do have a question for you relative to the quarterback situation.
Okay.
I'm going to pat myself on the back because I said on the podcast last week that I thought the game was going to come down to a big special teams play by the University of Iowa. And I thought at one point in the game, Iowa was going to break a big run, because they always do against Nebraska. And no other play in that game was more important than that pump block. And what was incredibly frustrating was watching that, when they replayed it from behind the punter, and you can literally see that blocker take a step into the middle, just clearing the way for that guy to come and block that punt. And that play was a microcosm of Nebraska's season right there. And just totally frustrating, because, we've all seen it, guys. We've sat through it for 9 games this year, that no matter where Nebraska was at up into the fourth quarter, second half, fourth quarter, there was always plenty of time for Nebraska to not win the game. That pump block was critical in that situation, and that's what put Iowa over the top, in my opinion.
A couple quick thoughts on your thoughts. It was said, I think, after the Michigan State game, where special teams, we punted it to the wrong side of the field, that this joke, it wasn't funny then, it's not funny now, was that Nebraska is a good team that finds creative ways to lose games.
Yes.
Iowa was a brand new, batch of insanity. The blocked punt, that's, blocked at 10 or 12 and walked in the safety, a series or so later. Just they tied the game at 21 without the offense scoring a damn touchdown.
Yep.
And then when as they continued to slowly chip away, everybody knew, everybody in Memorial Stadium knew, every Husker fan watching at home knew Huskers weren't going to win that game. I don't know if there was a player on that team that felt like Nebraska was going to win that game. If so, they didn't show it in between the white lines. It's just beyond frustrating to know that my son, I'll give the twins the benefit of the doubt, but my oldest, who's going to be 6 in a couple of weeks, does not live in a world where Nebraska has beat Iowa in his lifetime.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know how to process that as a father, guys.
Do I get 3 things about Logan Smothers?
You get 3 things about the Iowa game, and if they're about Logan Smothers, that's fine.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep him with Logan Smothers because Logan Smothers is probably our future. Number one, I'd say that he was good at running our offense. I thought he did an excellent job of actually executing our offense, with the exception of one thing, which is number 2. Maybe the motherfucker had more time on the field during the season to get experience with the team he was supposed to be playing for and leading on the field, but he didn't because of our dumb fuck ass coach. He'd actually been able to look at his team and say, hey, I know things look like shit right now because they just blocked the punt, but how about if we go down the field here and score and get momentum back? But, being a guy that didn't get a lot of time with his teammates on the field during games during the season, they're probably just going to look at him and go, we've all done this and you just got here, so shut the fuck up, because that's how it goes. And number 3, I didn't write down number 3 when you guys were talking, but I thought he executed the offense well. I thought he looked to me like a quarterback that could run the option, which maybe we're going to be doing in the future. I thought his passing game was decent. The only problem I had was at the end of the game in that final drive, he kept throwing the ball to his check down receivers. And then he did take a shot downfield when it was absolutely forced on him. And Levi Falk either ran the wrong route or he thought it was the wrong route.
He broke it off. Levi Falk broke off the route because of the coverage.
But my only criticism is take a shot earlier because you'd have more time to take a shot later. And again, that goes back to, hey, maybe get the guy on the game field, get him on the field for some game experience, and then he understands how to finish a drive. But you didn't get that out of Scott Frost because, Adrian Martinez, a broken jaw, play him. Broken leg, play him. His arm's coming off. It's just a flesh wound. Play him.
Greg,
Jesus. You get the idea that maybe I was a little angry with, let's stick this guy out there because we have no other option now. Maybe if Adrian was able to crawl onto the field and play quarterback, that Scott Frost would have done that again.
Something with Adrian's announced planned departure today, something came to mind, and I wonder if it's going to be, if you remember a couple of years ago when Tom Brady signed with the Buccaneers, after his career in New England, and I'm no fan of the Patriots, no fan of Belichick or Tom Brady, but a lot of people were saying, well, now we're going to know who was, who was the real reason behind all the team's success. Yep. Was it Bill Belichick or was it Tom Brady? So I think next year, assuming that Adrian Martinez, and the tough part is you're going to have to be comparable. So he would potentially have to land at a Power 5 school. Doesn't matter which one, but Pac-12 probably, Big 12, something like that. And then is there a scenario where like the player succeeds and the coach doesn't, the coach succeeds and the player doesn't, maybe they both succeed because they're out of whatever codependent relationship they were in. I'm really curious I hope Adrian nothing but the best. I think I said it before if I overlooked it. The kid was a warrior. And I think nobody encapsulated, Husker pride in the last few years, 4 years specifically, like Adrian Martinez, despite the many pitfalls that he encountered, from day one, from that career opening game against Colorado when he got his knee twisted that didn't get called. I think that, I hope both sides succeed. Again, unless he lands in the Big Ten, but I don't see any Big Ten team taking Adrian Martinez. But I'm very curious to know the dynamic now that those two forces are, separated. Who's gonna be looked at as who was holding whom back? So,
well, I think the one thing that I'm going to say about Logan Smothers in the Iowa game is Logan Smothers' performance during the Iowa game showed, for all the Adrian Martinez hating motherfuckers out there, that this team's problems were not Adrian's fault. I mean, there were some because it's a team game. That's how it goes. But you guys that want to blame everything on Adrian Martinez, it was pretty fucking clear that this team's problems were not all Adrian Martinez. Especially when you cut down in the safety, gave up the safety because your tackles can't fucking block. There you go.
Let's stick with quarterback, but kind of look forward just a little bit because, Greg was talking about that big, young, strapping Heinrich Harbaugh. We have Logan Smothers coming back. Heinrich Harbaugh is going to come back. Matt.
In Harburg?
Harburg. Yeah, pardon me. Harburg. I get my baws and my bergs,
I'm thinking if he's a baw, he's wearing the wrong colors because I don't think Jimothy lets any relations get away.
Okay, so we got Logan and Heinrich. Does Nebraska go into the portal and bring in another quarterback? We also have that Torres kid coming up as a true freshman next year.
Yes. Unless he's a complete fucking moron, Scott Frost goes out there and tries to find whatever quarterbacks are available that have run an offense similar to his and have some experience playing at the Division I level. Unless he just looks at it and goes, I think we're fine with what we got. Good job, Scott Frost, you motherfucking loser for another year. Yeah, go find some quarterbacks. Last year, you went out and found 15 kickers and none of them worked. Maybe you should find a guy that can run your offense.
I think the key word, the emphasis there in John's diatribe is that's close to the offense of Scott Woods. You can't just go, you can't get my, mind's eye prototypical quarterback who's, 6'4", 230 with a rocket arm. I mean, because those guys aren't going to be, it's going to be a square peg round hole situation. So you go and get, the best available as long as they fit or comparable to what you've been doing or what you hope to achieve. And, look, we're going to have a new offensive staff. Maybe they're going to bring in their own ideas. Maybe they're going to bring in wrinkles and schemes that, a more prototypical pocket guy might fit in. All those conversations. I mean, you have to have all of these coaching philosophy questions before you bring a coach on, right? I mean, Scott's going to sit down with Mickey or whomever, be like, this is what we want to do. Are you capable of operating within these parameters? Because you can't have any dissension in the ranks. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for a fifth offensive coordinator, in the Scott Frost tenure. So
let's move off Nebraska football. There's been a lot of other news recently, and I'm going to play 3 questions with you guys. You guys, we'll keep score down the road. Okay.
Wait.
The Battle of Somme, Verdun, and Passchendaele. Okay, let's move on.
Wait, these questions, are there right answers or are there just answers?
There are 3 questions. With 2 of the questions, there's definitively right answers.
Okay.
All right. There are 4 new coaches for 4 premier programs, okay, for next year. I'm going to go with the pundits who are saying that Marcus Freeman is going to be the head coach at Notre Dame. We got Brian Kelly at LSU, Lincoln Riley at USC, Billy Napier at Florida. Of those four situations, I'm going to come to you first, John. Which one is the best fit for that school and program?
Name them again.
Billy Napier at Florida, Lincoln Riley at USC, Brian Kelly at LSU, Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame.
Okay. I want to say Billy Napier, but that's not true. It's Lincoln Riley at USC. It's Lincoln Riley. It's Lincoln Riley at USC because they gave him $110 million. They bought him a $6 million home. He gets a private jet for the use of his family. I mean, is he? I want to know when this guy goes on a recruiting trip, is he going to have a tiger on a chain, a live tiger that he takes on recruiting trips? Even though USC is atrocious, he's just like, I got a fucking tiger because I can. You know,
he's got a handful of Trojans.
Right. God. I just think that, you know, Lincoln, I don't think Lincoln Riley is worth $110 million. I don't think he's that great a coach. But I think if he can make USC into something that wins the Pac-12 consistently and gets into the college football playoff, it'll weaken the SEC because the fucking kids will stop leaving California all the time.
Don't go much further because you're almost invading a couple of my other questions.
Okay. All right.
Greg,
so
you
Lincoln Riley.
With that? Lincoln Riley at USC, that's the best fit?
Yeah, I think so. He's got that Southern California two-face mentality. I don't know if you guys saw the tweet. He had in his introductory press conference or something, he made a comment about saying this place is special or something like that. And one of
Mecca of the football world.
Thank you. And one of his very recently former players at Oklahoma said, "That's funny. You were saying the same thing to us yesterday." So,
I think I think the worst fit is Brian Kelly to LSU.
Oh, I agree.
I think he said, I need to take this opportunity when he really meant, I need to take this $9.5 million a year. He's got to learn how to understand what a po' boy is and crawfish you have to pay and shit like that. And that guy's got no fucking chance of doing that.
Well,
whatsoever.
I think Brian Kelly's a pathetic human being, but that's beyond.
Yeah, I'd agree with that assessment.
Okay. Second question. Which one of those four coaches gets their team into the college football playoff first?
Ooh,
Greg.
Lincoln Riley. Easier path.
Yeah.
Really, Nate, you take Florida and you take LSU. They still have to compete with Alabama and Georgia. Notre Dame they've always been close. But they're one of the they're still one of the blue blood tried and true programs in the country, despite what a lot of Husker fans dislike them. That's fine. But I think if you look at, I think Lincoln Riley has to make a bigger leap faster, but I think his path overall is easier.
John, I'm going to go with the Freeman at Notre Dame because they're Notre Dame. And because, when kids go to Notre Dame, they go there because it's Notre Dame. They don't go there because they could have a fucking stick and name it the head coach, and they'd still get shit tons of really good players there because it's Notre Dame.
Why
they still have
saying that. It like that.
What?
Notre Dame?
It's Notre Dame. How do you supposed to pronounce it? Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
Notre Dame.
N-O-T-R-E. You were saying Norder.
Well, Norder, whatever the fuck. Wash. Goddamn, whether you ball your shrimp or boil them, what do you fucking get? I'll kick your ass.
Question number 3. First fired.
Brian Kelly at LSU.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing, from being honest. Now, we have correct me if I'm wrong. we didn't mention Oklahoma's new coach.
They haven't named one yet.
I mean, according to Google, it's Bob Stoops.
Speculation also has Brent Venables.
Right.
But wasn't Bob Stoops in trouble?
No. Bob Stoops just said, "I'm tired of doing this stuff."
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how anybody would want to coach into their 60s anyway, dealing with all this shit you got to deal with.
Bob Stoops at his age is not going to take Oklahoma into the SEC.
No.
He's the interim coach right now.
Yeah.
He's going to coach him in the bowl game.
He can walk out and wave at people. I'm Bob Stoops. Sons of bitches.
I could have sworn that, a few years in recent, a couple years ago, Bob Stoops was in the news for some not good reasons.
Not that I recall.
I apologize to Mr. Stoops and the Stoops family for
mixing him up with his
accusations.
childhood neighborhood friend, Carl Helene.
That's fair.
Oh my!
All the way from
you know what? The funnest thing about this whole coaching menagerie, wild chairs, whatever, magical chair. I'm missing
musical chairs.
Carousel. It's getting late. My brain's running out of trying to pull the words out. And now I forgot my thought. No, the funnest thing about all of this is Oklahoma, the Oklahoma community and the Oklahoma fans, the Oklahoma president saying shit like, "We thought we'd get more notice." Really? That's probably what Iowa State thought, you fucks. Right when you pulled the rug out from underneath them.
Exactly. So, I love that too. Yeah, all that stuff
pathetic bunch of people.
Quiet from us.
God.
Well, meanwhile, then you had Brian Kelly's announcement coming over the internet, before he had the opportunity to tell his team, like, you didn't know that news was going to get out.
Yeah, Brian Kelly.
Yeah. Well,
so I'll tell you what, though, you did mention Oklahoma here. I think Brent Venables is the guy for the job. I mean, to be honest with them going into the SEC, especially now after losing a guy who's kind of, been at the helm, Venables has shown he can coach defense that can beat teams from the SEC. So, you look at Georgia, they're winning because of defense, and Venables might be the guy for that job.
If you looked at how the SEC, which really needs a new name, I know because of the brand and everything, it won't. I mean, same with Big Ten, it's Big 14 or whatever. But how are they going to realign the conference? Because they keep growing westward. I think Missouri isn't I know Missouri is in the Eastern Division. You got Oklahoma and Texas coming in. Do they split? Does one go east, one go west? And if so, who makes that decision? Who's going to have to play Alabama every year, and who's going to get them every other year?
My God, what do you want from us?
I'm just asking,
No, I don't know.
Todd's not the only one with questions, baby. Okay.
It will be, maybe they'll go legends and leaders.
Oh, I wish they would. I wish Big Ten would go back to legends and leaders, because then maybe Nebraska could get back to fucking Indianapolis.
The key here is that neither Oklahoma nor Texas were part of the Civil War states. Neither of those states were part of the Confederacy. Oklahoma didn't even exist as a state, but most of the people that live in the SEC footprint area don't know either of those things. So it's just to them, it's just the SEC expanding till they take over America, make their own to make up for them years ago when they was savaged by General Sherman.
Are you sure Texas wasn't in the Confederacy? I seem to think Texas was in the Confederacy.
No.
And they
not call only it that, Six Flags. They call it Six Flags over Texas. Why do they call it that, Todd? Why do they call it Six Flags?
Because Texas has belonged to six separate entities.
Probably, maybe the Confederacy was part of Texas, but you go down there and you ask a Texan, and you see what they say. And then you go to Houston and ask the Texan, and then you go to Dallas and then Austin and then El Paso and Lubbock. And you're probably going to get 18 different answers.
The Republic.
Some guy will answer the same question 6 different times, different ways.
What 140 years ago or whatever, when they said the South will rise again, what they didn't know is they're talking about college football in the 21st century.
You're right.
So it's depressing to think the South should never rise again.
Let's twist back to Nebraska sports here just a minute. Then we're going to do, Greg, you weren't here at the beginning. We are going to do predictions. See, and now I understand what it's like to sit in your chair and try to wrangle us in. I get that now.
I want to say, being on this side of the desk when I'm not, because oftentimes I'll get off on a tangent. I'll pause a little bit. John will be like, okay, what's next? There's a nice flow, Todd. I appreciate Todd, the leader. It makes my heart happy.
Todd's shooting his wad on everything tonight, just trying to stay ahead from you. Todd is struggling. I'll put it that way.
I want a shirt now that said Todd shot his wad.
Todd the wad.
I wasn't going to go that far. That's crazy. Inappropriate.
All right. Back to Nebraska sports. Women's volleyball starts their journey down the NCAA tournament trail tomorrow night against Campbell. Is this Nebraska volleyball team, if they win Friday night, they play at home again, I believe, on Saturday night, most likely against Kansas State. Is this Nebraska edition of this Nebraska 2021 edition of the volleyball team? How far are they going to get? Are they going to be a Final Four team? Elite 8, Sweet 16, championship game? What's going to end up happening with this volleyball team?
My first question, my response is in the form of a question. How many teams are there now? Are they 64?
64.
Okay. They'll get to the Sweet 16, possibly Elite 8. I hate saying that. Unfortunately, they have not been consistent enough this year to show where they're going to get hot at the right time. I really wish Beth was here to talk about this. Beth would be the go-to for all things Nebraska volleyball. But I want them to go all the way. I want the confetti to rain down on Coach Cook and his team. These stellar athletes and student athletes that we have at Nebraska, quite possibly our best hope for championship gold for years to come, despite maybe baseball having a say in that. But I just don't. They just haven't quite been themselves this year. And that's a very novice outsider looking in approach. The magic's a little off this year. John, how about you?
I think it's all about who lasts. You know what I mean? You got Lexi Rodriguez. Beth should be here for this, but Lexi Rodriguez has been like the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year as a freshman, right?
Yep.
And I think it's a matter of how much can Lauren Stivrins take. You know what I mean? How much can she play? I think they've been inconsistent because John Cook has spread his playing time around. We have Beth, so I don't follow volleyball as close as I should, but I think that, I don't know, I'll go with Elite 8.
I kind of agree with what you guys are saying. I would say Sweet 16, Elite 8. I think, if you look at this team, you got 3 first-team all Big Ten players, Maddie Kubik, Lauren Stivrins, and we just talked about Alexi Rodriguez. Those are the 3 first-teamers. Honestly, I don't think Lauren Stivrins has had near the season this year that she had last year. And maybe there's those lingering issues of the back problems that she's had. But in my opinion, for this team to get to the Elite 8, if any further than that, we're going to have to see those 2 super seniors step up. Lauren Stivrins is going to have to step up her game, and Lexi Sun is going to have to be, the player that she's been the previous 2 years. If that can happen, maybe they can get to the Elite 8. it'd be nice to see them in the Final Four. But it's an exciting time of the year for Nebraska fans and for volleyball fans. Creighton is in the tournament too. Two Nebraska teams. The hotbed of volleyball. Women's basketball is off to an 8-0 start. Beat Wake Forest last night in the Big Ten ACC Challenge. I think I read on Corn Nation that they had the 216th toughest schedule of the year of all Division I schools, but knocking off Wake Forest, that's a feather in their cap. Maybe Amy Williams has got this team. Maybe she has the team that she wants and needs to play well in the Big Ten.
It's about time. Not to poo-poo on anybody, but again, Williams was a hire. That was former Husker. All these. For the life of me, and I know she had success at her previous job, but again, similar to Scott Frost, it's not the Big Ten. I don't know why we keep going back to the well of, Nebraska ties. We're Nebraska. We've got a fairly healthy bank account to write a check or two. Why aren't we going for best rather than best former Husker? That being said, because there have been issues in the past with players, leaving, transferring out of her program. If the ship's righted, if the train is on the tracks, if, the bus is moving down the road at the right direction, I don't know what horrible transportation analogies I'm trying to make, then so be it. But yeah, it's time. It's time.
John, we talked before we started recording here tonight a little bit about that 4 overtime exhaustive game that the men played last night out against North Carolina State. I did watch about 5 minutes of the basketball game last night, which is 5 minutes more of Nebraska basketball than I watched all of last season. Rumor has it, in that 4 overtime game, here's 3 things I heard. Bad call at the end of regulation, perhaps bad no call at the end of regulation. Bench clearing brawl highlighted by our injured Trey McGowan's scooting out to it on his scooter. Numerous ejections and foul outs. And did they really play a manager? No, I know they didn't do that. But Fred Hoiberg probably should be fined for what he said at the conclusion of the game.
What'd he say?
I don't know, but he must have ripped the referees pretty good.
NC State shot 43 free throws. We shot 15. We usually shoot 24 average a game. I can understand the no call on the layup at the end of regulation just because the game's tied. And I think when you're on the road, it's very difficult to get those calls. I hate it when we talk of football games and we blame officials, but basketball, it was pretty bad. I mean, there was bad all around. First of all, Lapman got upset because he had a 3 shot in his face. And he's upset with one of his teammates and walked by the NC State bench and elbowed the guy pretty hard to start a kerfuffle. And then Eduardo Andre looked like a complete fucking idiot that was 8 years old charging into that. Trey McGowan scooted out there, but I think he just kind of scooted out there. It was pretty funny.
Wanted a closer look.
He just wanted to see what was going on. He's like, man, what's going on over here? And Eduardo Andre just got right into that shit, and he got tossed. The announcers were terrible because they weren't at the game. They didn't know who got tossed because they didn't have any information. The referees were terrible because of the incredibly lopsided foul calling. And then Bryce McGowan had 2 shots at the end of, I think, the second overtime. He makes them both, we win. And he only made 1. So, it was I'd say overall, it was a fun game to watch. It's another one of those things where Nebraska sports is always interesting It was unfortunate we didn't come away with a win because it would have been a nice road win. But all that matters with this team is that they continue to get better because Big Ten play is coming up next. Yeah. And they start at Indiana. Yeah, they start at Indiana. And somehow it'd be really nice for them to pull off a win against Indiana. I don't know if they can do it at Indiana because winning on a home court, winning a road game in the Big Ten is really hard. But, just get better, play better. Have fucking Lat Mahan get a brain that he doesn't have to act like a 5-year-old just because things don't go his way. He's very streaky, but they really, Derek Walker played shit tons of minutes and it was clear that he was getting tired. And Breidenbach is a freshman. He's another big guy and he's interesting. Looks like a serial killer. And I think he'll develop, but he's very young. And they could have used Andre for at least to get some minutes into the game. And they could have used Mann to get some minutes in the game because in 4 overtimes, I'd say NC State won it because their big guy Seaborn, who had like 39 points, had more gas than anybody else. And we ran out of it. So, get your shit together and start winning games. And I'm not talking about Fred Hoiberg. I'm talking about his fucking players. There you go, sons of bitches.
The other sport that's in action would be wrestling, and Mark Manning's going to take the Cornhuskers out to Las Vegas this weekend. That's going to be interesting. The National Finals Rodeo is going on in Las Vegas, and it's absolutely packed with cowboys. I don't know where they're going to stick a bunch of wrestlers out there.
Cowboys sleep on their horses, Todd. Everybody knows that.
Okay. All right. But
spend some more time out in Western Nebraska. Damn it, they'll tell you a few things.
They're going to wrestle at the Cliff Keen Invitational, which is one of the 3 premier invitational wrestling tournaments at the college level. You got that, the Midlands in Chicago, and the Southern Scuffle down south. But this is the first tournament that Nebraska will wrestle in where they actually keep team score. And a lot of the top teams are going to be out there. So that will be a real test for Nebraska to see where they're at early in the season. I said
Todd,
before we're going to move on to predictions.
Todd.
Yes.
I have a wrestling related question for you. Gable Steveson.
Yep.
One of your favorites from last year, Minnesota national champion, Olympic gold medalist, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yep. Youngest wrestling gold medalist ever.
What is your opinion when legitimate wrestlers like him go and enter the professional wrestling world?
Well, he has signed a contract with the WWE and a pretty good sized contract. I guess my opinions kind of changed over the years. I used to, when I was actually coaching high school wrestling myself, I used to take wrestlers up to the University of Minnesota to camp and got to know some of those guys up there. And they gave me a little bit different perspective on professional wrestling. I guess what I look at in this day and age, it's no different than any other amateur athlete. If you have a chance to make the money, go make the money. And Gable Steveson could compete in Olympic style wrestling for the next 10 years and probably win more than one more gold medal at the world or Olympic level. He could probably do that, but he's never going to come close to making the kind of income that he's going to make in 3 or 4 years of professional wrestling. That's not going to happen. So I've even heard rumor that he's going to wrestle up through the end of this calendar year and then leave and enter the professional ranks after the first of the year. I think there might be a lot of BS to that. But nobody has really been too definitive on how this is all going to unroll. But, Gable Steveson, freak athlete. You do not see guys that big as athletic as he is. I think he'll be a star in professional wrestling.
He's a showman.
He is a showman. He
has figured out how to be a showman in college.
Yeah.
I asked that question. This is a more broad question for either of you, but I saw today, one of the, non-wrestling sites, oddly enough, that I follow through social media, said that the WWE is starting an NIL program for college athletes who want to, when their collegiate career is over, they want to transition into the squared circle or whatever, they call it anymore. And I didn't know what your thought. I mean, you could have I'm trying to think who on Nebraska would be a good fit in that work. Garrett Nelson, and he's not going to, because I think his upside is a little higher in the world of football. But, he was a wrestling state champion, and I think his dad was also a wrestling champion, but he's got the personality, that I think a company like that, an industry like that would serve. But I don't know what's your guys' take just overall on it's almost like sponsoring college athletes, just be like, we'll give you a job when you're done.
How is that any different from any other business or corporation?
Yeah.
And what will be interesting now that I hadn't heard that, Greg, it makes sense. But based on that, then does the UFC start coming in and working out, NIL deals? Because the number of college wrestlers that go into the UFC far exceeds, or some MMA organization far exceeds the number of wrestlers that go into the WWE.
Oh, for sure.
This is how capitalism works, Greg. What are you, becoming a fucking commie like Todd? What do you got? No. Free market? You hate it? What?
No. I guess I didn't realize, because you guys are so much more experienced in life than me. that okay. I just wanted your opinion on this news that I heard, and you're right. It's not terribly uncommon. However, with the new name, image, likeness, now they're able to market the athletes more so than, again, a year ago, we weren't talking about, Huskers out there advertising for Runza or, the Trey McGowan's or Trey McGowan's, seeking a scooter sponsorship while he heals after last night. But now the world is these student athletes' oyster, and, take every advantage of it, because you can only make money on a running back's knees for so long. So, if you've had a great career, if you are Braylon Allen from Wisconsin and you are ready to jump to the NFL next year where we don't have to see you anymore, great. Let's get him there.
Let's move him on. I think we should start the campaign to send him to the NFL.
I agree. I don't want to see him anymore. But he's Adrian Peterson good. I don't want to deal with Adrian Peterson again.
Let's move on to predictions. We got 5 games.
Holy shit.
Winner in these games. No points spread. Just give me your winner. We're going to look at the conference championship games. This is a big, big fun weekend to be a college football fan. Of course, it'd be more fun if our team was playing.
Now, Todd, you've got the list there, so you've got to keep track.
Yep.
And next week, the loser has to buy the winners a pop, a sody pop.
The sody pop. Okay.
You can Venmo me $1.30. That's what it's going for out here.
All right. Oklahoma State, Baylor, Big 12 championship game. John.
Oklahoma State.
I'm going to go Baylor.
You would.
Well, I'm going to try to win, and I can't win by time.
No, but you can lose, certainly.
Well, yeah. Okay. The biggest matchup of the championship weekend. ACC, Pitt, Wake Forest.
Wake Forest.
What are you going with there, Todd?
I got to go with Wake Forest.
Damn right.
All right.
It's so weird. It's so weird that we're 2 in and we have unconventional competition in both conferences so far. Okie State, Baylor. There's no Texas or Oklahoma there. and no Clemson. It's tremendous. What an insane year of college football.
Well, let's just go down that other road. Pac-12, Oregon, Utah, kind of half and half. Oregon's been good. Oregon, Utah. John,
you can go. Oregon.
Greg,
I'll go Utah this time. I'll be the dissenting vote.
I'm going to go Utah.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Yeah.
This is where John pulls away.
SEC, Alabama
Georgia.
Crimson Tide,
Georgia
Bulldogs,
Georgia.
I got Alabama.
You would.
And it's going to spoil Cincinnati's dreams. Okay. This one's going to hurt. Michigan, Iowa,
Michigan.
I'll say Michigan because I'll never, ever, ever give Iowa any credit.
I mean, come on. Michigan has both a defense and an offense.
Michigan football players are still in the middle of the big house, slapping each other on the back, congratulating themselves for beating Ohio State.
That is
Michigan
true.
doesn't realize that they will be on an airplane tomorrow morning to Indianapolis or a bus. I got a bad vibe, but I cannot.
Jim Harbaugh is a professional coach. He has been coaching many years. He is a successful coach. He will have his players ready to play.
Because he wasn't born on third base and thought he hit a triple.
Right. What a great line. I love those guys.
Fellas, any final words? Greg?
Christmas trees up. 'Tis the season to not be watching football because Nebraska's not in it anymore.
John, you got any final words?
Well, Big Ten basketball starts this weekend for men's basketball. So, I just take it one game at a time. Don't project into the future. Just live for now. When you're watching basketball, just go, oh, what's happening right now? Man, dude, yeah.
I guess my final thoughts were I'm anxious to see how Scott Frost fills out the rest of his coaching staff. I think my highest level of curiosity is what he's going to do with special teams. And I did not participate in the roundtable on coordination as far as, predicting who the assistants will be. But my thought on the special teams coach is that Scott Frost should coach the special teams. And like Bo Pelini did, and let the other coaches do the jobs that they've been hired to do. So with that, we're going to wrap things up.
I remember those Bo Pelini special teams days. Didn't we have we had nice Alex Henry back then?
Yeah, we did. Greg, as we wrap things up, I'm going to ask you to wrap things up because I always fuck this up.
All right. Well, you got your pen and paper there, so write it down, Todd, because you never know when my kids are going to start screaming and I'm going to have to duck out or miss a recording entirely. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Husker fans of all ages, we hope you had a great time listening to and or watching this episode wherever you find the Five Heart Podcast, be it on your favorite podcast platform or youtube.com. We thank you. We miss you. We wish we had a better offseason to talk about. But as John has said, Nebraska basketball is here. All is right in the world. Something like that. So for our founder and fearless leader, John Dam Johnston, for our guest host with the most, wherever he is in the boxes, Todd Wolverton, who did a tremendous job. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for him. Throw your love in the comment section. He gets off on it. I'm Greg Mahochko, reminding you this and every week that Five Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red.
Todd?
Go Blue.
Wow. That's different.
What you talk about, Willis?
I got to have a vested interest this week.
I'd like
And
to see Michigan win. It'd be fun for them. They dealt with a lot of shit.
it can't be the Iowa Hawkeyes. It cannot be the Iowa Hawkeyes.
You think that if Harbaugh goes and he got one monkey off his back by beating Ohio State, and now if he wins the Big Ten championship, does that lend hope for Nebraska's favorite son and the future here in Lincoln? Or is it two completely different situations?
Two completely different situations.
You're dead to me, John. I'm leaving.
I got to get headphones that don't itch after an hour. He did leave. Wow.